Hello and welcome to the Shotgun Sportsman, a podcast about handgun hunting brought to you by Handgun Hunters International. My name is Ryan Hoover and I'm your host. I believe handgun hunting is the most rewarding way to hunt, and it's something I want to share with as many people as I can. If you are at all interested in getting your own game meat, I want to challenge you to a way of hunting that is good for both your spirit and your body, so you can become the confident, self-reliant person you were meant to be. All right, folks, today we've got a heck of a good podcast for you. Today I'm interviewing one of the most prolific handgun hunters that I know of, Dr. Larry Rogers, who has hunted all over the world, and he is just always active with depredation permits. He is responsible for eliminating more destructive species in West Virginia than I can even think of. He's meticulous about his records, and if you follow him on social media, you know that he is just very accomplished, and he has a very enviable record of hunting experience. He also has so many articles in the Six Gunner, both the classic and the new Six Gunner that we put out now. And so I invite you to all subscribe to that. You can go to subscribepage.com/the Six Gunner and receive the new Six Gunners, or you can sign up on our website, handgunhuntersinternational.com, to be on the list for the classic Six Gunner, the old ones that we digitize and give away for free. Both of them are free. Well, I hope you enjoy this one. I certainly did. Wealth of experience, lots of good stories, some wild, some that we may never see the likes of again. Here's my interview with Dr. Larry Rogers, the West Virginia Hitman. Dr. Larry Rogers, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Ron.
You are one of the most requested guests on this podcast. I don't know if you know that, because I don't know anybody who has more experience in terms of numbers than Doc Rogers. And of course, we've known about you for years because you wrote for the Six Gunner back when JD was running HHI, and what the Hitman is your nickname. And you got up to, what number are you on in the Hitman articles? 30 something, almost 40?
Oh yeah, for articles, yeah.
Yeah. And we've always enjoyed reading that. So I'm happy to get a chance to visit with you. Let's start with this. Can you tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up and why you decided to become a doctor and what kind of drives you?
Well, my father was a coal miner and my mother was a teacher, and we lived in a coal mining camp that had about 30 houses that were identical, 4 rooms each with a fireplace in each side, no bathrooms, but a john outside. And I lived there for 12 years. My dad had a history of hunting. His family raised him in the 20s and 30s, and they were very poor. They hunted a lot to get their food, and so that got me into hunting. My mother, being a teacher, pushed me to do better in school, so I studied a lot and did pretty good in school. What drives me is, why did I become a doctor? In the 8th grade, we had to write a paper on what we wanted to be. So I researched things. I looked at lawyers and other professional jobs and doctors, and the doctor thing really I was really enthusiastic about it because they did so many things. Babies, hearts, surgery, all kinds of things. So I really got interested in that. I almost got sidetracked once I got in high school. I got into music, and I ended up being a pretty good trumpet player. I was first-year trumpet in junior high school and high school, and I even had a band in high school. But I realized that if I stayed in music, I wouldn't be able to do all the things I was interested in medicine, and I also wouldn't be able to afford this really bad habit I have called hunting. So that's why I became a doctor.
That's funny. That's interesting to me. My family, I come from a medical family, not me, but my granddad was a plastic surgeon. My mom and my grandma were nurses. My best friend is an ER doc. So that's interesting, your story about that, because it kind of mirrors a lot of their stories as well. What kind? Are you a family practice doctor?
Yeah, I'm a board certified family practitioner. I did 46 years of it. It's interesting. The reason I come to the town I live in and practice in, my dad and I hunted the whole state, every place, and I found out that the Potomac Highlands in Grant County, where I live, on the eastern side of the Allegheny Mountains, had the best hunting for deer, bear, turkeys, everything. So when I got in my training in medical school, I came to the doctors in all the little towns around me and did interviews, and they all wanted me. And the town I'm in, Petersburg, was the only one that had a hospital. So that's the sole reason I live in this town, because of the hunting that was available. And I haven't regretted it. My numbers have been fantastic all the years I've lived here, and
Yeah.
I've had a great life. And medicine too. I went into family practice so I could do everything. I've delivered babies. I set up our coronary care unit, and I remained its director for 40 years. Did all kinds of minor surgery, nothing major. I've had a really nice life here in Petersburg.
That's great to hear. So I know growing up, probably weren't hunting with handguns a lot, especially in the younger days. You know, that wasn't really a thing for the generation that preceded yours. So how did you make the leap from being a hunter to being a handgun hunter?
Well, a couple things. When I was young, really young, I liked carrying my pistols, toy pistols on my side, and I even have a picture of me with my two toy pistols and my groundhog pet that I had, which is sort of funny. They're not pets for me anymore. But when my dad started taking me out hunting when I was 5 years old, uh, his brother went with us too, and the brother wanted to give my dad a little break and took me hunting with him so Dad could hunt by himself. Well, my uncle used a Smith 22 to shoot squirrels with, a revolver,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was really cool. So I talked Dad into getting me a Harrington and Richardson model 629 22, and I started shooting it. And I was like 8 or 9 years old, and there was groundhogs in these strip mines in the coal fields, and I started shooting some groundhogs that young with it, and that's what got me started.
Oh, that's interesting. So you
Yep.
were, yeah, that was pretty young. That's neat.
Yeah. Yep.
So can you tell me about your first, like your journey from the small game to big game handgun hunting?
Yeah. The West Virginia was legal for varmint hunting with handguns for many years, but they were not legal for big game, including deer. And I and some other people kept pushing our legislature to get laws through to make it legal. It took them, I think it was until 1978 or 1979 that we finally got a bill where it was legal to hunt deer and bear with handguns. So I had at that time a Ruger Blackhawk 357 Magnum, and I couldn't wait to go out on my first deer hunt in a doe season. And I loaded up some 158 grain Sierra hollow point jacketed hollow cavities, and I went out and I saw one about 60, 70 yards. First shot wasn't the greatest. I think I hit him a little far back in the edge of the lungs, and he ran a little bit. But I put him down with the second shot, or put her down, and I was tickled to death. And that pretty much cemented me there with handguns. And the final thing was that year I did a buck hunt with a rifle, 30-06, and I killed one at 402 yards. And I thought to myself, that's it. I've had enough. There's got to be more of a challenge. So I gave up my rifles completely. I started practicing with my handguns. The first couple of years wasn't pretty. I wounded a few, killed a few, but then I got pretty good, and I've been 100% handguns ever since. I have not shot any game with a rifle since 1978.
Wow. That's what
Yep.
one of the things, and I loved what you said about being tickled to death at your first big game success. What were some of the things going through your head and heart after that success? Because I love, one of the things that I am always talking about with handgun hunting is that kind of feeling, that high, that addictive, like we want to do that again. It feels so good. What was it like? What was your state of mind after that?
Oh, it's the high. It was almost like taking some kind of drug. I was hyper. I was super self-confident. Now I was a real handgunner. Now I was a real hunter. And oddly enough, I still get that same sensation. I went out yesterday and killed 5 groundhogs, and I had the same feeling that I did when I killed that first deer.
That's another excellent point, because I feel the same, and I know a lot of other handgun hunters I've talked to also feel the same. That it doesn't get boring.
Right. Never.
Yeah, exactly. You are obviously successful. We know that you do a lot of depredation hunting. You do a lot of
Yes.
varmint hunting.
Yes.
What's the secret to being able to be as prolific as you have been, as far as the number and the variety of animals that you've taken?
Well, my job helped me. Uh, where I work and live in rural West Virginia, we had lots of farmers. So every farmer that came in, I asked them if they had varmint troubles, groundhogs. And oh yeah, everybody did. And so first I asked them to hunt their groundhogs. And I had one time, I probably had 35 or 40 farms I could groundhog hunt on. I would not ask for permission to hunt anything else until 1 year of groundhog hunting, and I showed them how good I could be and how I could help their problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started asking them about turkey hunting and deer hunting, and then eventually I asked them about deer damage to their corn. So I ended up getting permission from all these farmers to do all of that. And I had an enormous pool to pick from, and over the years it was something else. My best years, I was killing over 500 groundhogs a year for 7 out of 8 years. My best year was 634.
Wow.
My best year on deer, I had a farmer that had enormous amounts of land with corn on it everywhere. I killed 151 deer 1 year.
Mm.
I cleaned them all by myself, and I give all my deer to poor, elderly, needy people. They never get wasted.
That's fantastic. And I knew that was the case, but I'm glad to hear you say exactly what you do with your deer, because
Yep.
that is the less discussed part about it, is how helpful sometimes this kind of thing can be to our communities.
Yep, yep. I had a friend show me, I used to have to hang deer to clean them. I had a friend show me how to do it on the ground. I can clean a deer now in about 7.5 to 8 minutes.
Man, I believe
and
it.
People doubted me on it, so I had my friend that showed me come with me and make a video of it.
Oh, I would love to see that. I believe it, but that's really neat. So I'm curious about this. When you talk about depredation stuff, and I know it's going to be different in every state, but in West Virginia, is it you that gets the permit? Is it the landowner that gets the permit? What are the requirements for depredation permits?
The landowner sees the deer coming into the corn. He calls the game warden. The game warden comes and inspects the corn. He permits the landowner, and the landowner is allowed normally to put 5 names on the permits for shooters. Well, nowadays, most of these farms I hunt on, they just put my name on it and don't fool with anybody else, because most guys, when they put their names on it, they'll come and kill 1 or 2 deer, and that doesn't help the corn damage. So they've learned that I have nothing to do all summer long, and I'm hunting 6 days a week for their deer, and so they normally just put my name on it, and that's it.
Talking about all this experience you've had, I know that you've been to Africa. You've hunted in Africa. You mentioned you do go out west some too, correct?
A bunch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell me, I mean, this is going to be hard, I know, with all your experience. Can you describe your most memorable hunt?
No, it's not hard. It's easy.
Oh, that's good.
My professional hunter in Africa heard that there was a photographic game park south of Kruger National Park that had 5 elephants chasing the photographers. He made a deal with the game people there that he could bring a hunter in and help them take care of the elephants. So I went in. They didn't know I was a handgunner, and they wanted me immediately to show them that I could shoot. So I got up on the Land Rover and took my .416 Taylor and rested and shot a pop can at 40 yards. And I could see the look on their face like, so what? You're not going to have a rest when you shoot the elephants. So I got off the landowner and I told one of the scouts to go ahead and set that pop gun up again. So I dead centered it at 40 yards offhand. So they had some scouts following these elephants' radios. They told us where to come in. As we were going in, one of the game wardens came up to me. He said, I like your shooting. I said, thank you. And he said, I'll tell you what, we got to kill all 5 of these elephants. After you kill the big one, keep shooting. Well, when we got into them, about 40 yards, they noticed us. The big one immediately turned towards me and started screaming. He put his ears out full. He put his trunk underneath him, and he started running as hard as he could. And my guide said, you got to shoot as quick as you can. Well, dumb me, I had my scope on my .416. I had it turned down by 2 power, but I had trouble seeing the landmarks on the elephant. And I finally did, and when I shot him, he dropped, and the others went a little bit crazy. They were smaller, and I shot 2 more of them. So I got to shoot 3 elephants. We went to where he dropped from where I was shooting, and the distance was exactly 12 yards.
Wow. Man, that's wild.
I had a number 2 hunt, almost as exciting. I ended up getting the number 4 SCI line, 475 pounds, 11 feet plus long. He charged me at 30 yards, and I dropped him with 1 shot with the .416 Taylor.
Yeah. Those are definitely exciting.
Another one that's exciting. It's funny too. On a brown bear hunt in Alaska, my guide and I had we got along real good. Heard a lot of jokes carried on. Well, we didn't see any bears in the one spot, and a hurricane moved in. So the guide moved us back to home base, and my guide said, "Well, we'll see some moose, but we won't see any brown bear." So he started blowing his moose call, and all of a sudden he said, "Oh my God, there's a bear, and he's coming right at us, and he's running hard." And I started laughing, and he said, "No joke, he is. Turn around and look." We were facing different ways, and here's this brown bear coming as hard as it could. And luckily, I had asked him before the hunt where should I shoot one if he's facing head on. He said right under the chin. Well, I had my .375 JDJ with 285 grain Grand Slams, and the bear got to 30 yards, and I shot, and he dropped in his tracks. As soon as I shot, I heard click, and I looked at my guide, and I said, "What happened?" He said, "I forgot to reload."
Oh.
We went up to the bear and made sure it was dead. He was a smoker. He got his cigarette out and tried to light it. He was shaking so much he couldn't light it, and I had to light it for him.
Wow.
That was a cool hunt too.
Yeah, I bet. Jeez, man. Doc, I don't, you don't hear stories like that very often.
Nope, not many.
Well, this is interesting because there aren't a lot of elephant hunters or lion hunters. And, it's kind of a taboo subject these days, unfortunately, just I think because of misunderstanding. But
right.
when you're in Africa, and I've seen videos of this, of, a successful elephant hunt, and then a village comes out to do all the butchering, and they make biltong or whatever, and it feeds however many families for a month. Was that your experience after the elephant hunt?
Yeah, when we killed them, we ended up killing all 5 of them. I killed 3. The game scouts killed 2. They brought 2 flatbed trucks in with about 40 to 50 guys, and they started working on them. Well, obviously it's going to take a long time, so we went in to a little town to eat, and we came back that night, and we got close to where they were working, and here's a male lion mating with a lioness. And we thought that was so cool. We tried to get pictures of it, but it was dark and we couldn't do it. But we went up to where they were cleaning the elephants, about another 300, 400, 500 yards, and they told the guys, we just saw lions down there. And when they said that, every one of them went and hit the flatbed trucks and refused to do any more cleaning.
Wow.
They took them out that night, and we went in the back the next morning, and they all did it. I took videos of the whole process, cleaning these elephants, using chainsaws on the bones. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
The women came in, carried the meat on their head out, they distributed the meat right there on the spot. It took them another 4 or 5 hours to do all of that.
That's fascinating. That's, to me, that's one of the lesser known and more realistic aspects of life on this planet, is nature red in tooth and claw.
Yeah, the same thing happened with a hippo. They called the people in a little village close to us, and after I killed it, here they were. There's another 40-plus people, and I got videos of that, of them cleaning them, and the women putting the meat on their head in a basket and walking away.
I love hearing stories like that because I feed my family with game meat. We don't buy beef, and so I love hearing that kind of thing. I know based on having followed you for a while and reading about you that you are typical of a handgun hunter in that you like to have different guns. You have several custom guns, several barrels, and you change up the kind of guns that you use. Can you talk to me about some of your most prized hunting handguns?
Yeah, well, first of all, my house burned down in 2002. I had 65 guns, rifles and handguns, and my best friend, J.D. Jones, came down and took them all back, and he was able to save 4. He told me, tell me what you want, and I was depressed then. I was the lowest ever. He told me, tell me what you want, and I'll start making them. Well, I told him what I wanted, and every month he had 3 guns ready for me.
Wow.
And I went to his house, is about 3.5, 4 hours from me, and got those guns. And he saved my psyche. JD's been my best friend ever since. When he started making them, I did not get any more rifles. The rifles that burned up, I let them go. He made me only handguns, and he's made me all the handguns, all the single-shot handguns I have, Encores, XPs, and Contenders, and he helped me get a bunch of the revolvers I have. My number 1 gun he made for me is easily by far my 6.5 284 XP 100. I killed everything with it. I've killed groundhogs. I've killed a couple turkeys with it. I've killed over 500 deer with it. I shot it so much that after 2,200 rounds, the barrel, the first part of the barrel was smooth as a shotgun bore, so I had to have him put a new barrel on it.
Wow.
The last time I went to Africa, that's the only single-shot gun I took, and I killed all my animals with it. And the nicest one, I killed a 800-pound kudu at 365 yards with one shot from that 6.5 284. But he's made me, unusual guns. I got a 338 Magnum JDJ Encore. He took a 338 and blew the shoulder out and made it sharper, and I've killed a bunch of stuff with that. I've got all the old originals, a 6.5 JDJ, a 309 JDJ, a 338, 375. I've got everything. JD's been a great friend of mine.
Yeah, that's quite the collection, Doc.
Yeah. And another thing he's done, I don't know if many people know this, he ended up appointing me to be his bullet tester. Anytime we got guns, like I bought a 300 Whisper from him when he first made them, and the bullet he developed it with was a 240 grain Sierra Hollow Point boat tail match, and I killed some deer with it. But if they were a little bit alert, they tended to runaways, and they weren't falling down very much. So I told JD that, and he said, hey, I want you to find out for me what works. So I ended up experimenting around, and I found that a 220 grain Sierra round nose bullet will drop a deer about 95% of the time from a suppressed whisper. And then he got hooked up with Lehigh bullets, and he hooked me up with Lehigh, and I did testing of their bullets on the whisper, and I did that for many years. And the first ones didn't work out, and they kept developing new bullets. And finally, the one that they advertise now called it's a 186 grain Chaos, which is a 30 grain bullet with looks like a hollow point. It's got skivs around it, and in the center of that bullet, they've got a 17 caliber bullet mounted. And if you shoot that into deer, you got 6 passive damage, 4 from the nose, 1 from the 17 bullet, and 1 from the 30 caliber base, and that drops the deer about 98% of the time.
Wow. Yeah, I knew that you had done a lot of experimentation with different bullets. I didn't realize that about the Lehigh, though. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, and they make a bullet now in a 375 caliber, and the last bear I killed 2 years ago, killed a 220-pound bear at 220 yards, and with a 250 grain Lehigh Chaos bullet that splits up just like the whisper bullet does, and I dropped him as tracks. And one bullet went through both shoulders, one pedal went through the spine, one went in the tenderloin, one went in the lung, one went in the liver.
Wow.
That bear didn't have a chance.
Yeah. Do you have wild pigs where you are?
No.
Just curious. That's not.
I wish I did. I got a friend in Georgia that's working on them big time. He's a HHI member, but nope, I don't have pigs here.
I don't know what the status is, but they're spreading.
Oh yeah, they're spreading big time. We've got pigs. They imported them to the southern part of our state, and we have a regular season. But there's not many there. They didn't take very well, and and it's real steep mountains. That's where I grew up in the southern part of the state, and my legs won't handle hunting in areas like that anymore.
I don't know, Doc. You got some new knees, I heard.
Yep, I got one new knee. I've been walking like crazy. I've killed my groundhog total this year already is up to 140.
Wow. What's for non-depredation style hunting? What's the season and bag limit in West Virginia and the deer population like?
2 bucks, and does you can kill up to 3 if you buy enough tags for them. Mm-hmm. So that's 5 deer I can kill, and I usually get close to that every year. I didn't last year because my knee was hurting me so bad, and I gave up the last 2 doe seasons and went and had my knee fixed so I could hunt more this year. That's all it is. Turkeys, you can hunt. You can kill 1 or 2 gobblers in the spring, and if you only kill 1 gobbler, you can kill 1 gobbler or hen in the fall. Squirrels, the limit's 6 a day, 36 total altogether you can keep. Bears, 1 a year is it normally.
What's your regular deer season? What dates?
Oh, it's the first Monday of November, and that week and the week after.
Okay.
And a lot of people on this podcast may not know that I was shot on the first day of deer season in 1998.
I actually
you know that?
Yes, I was I was scanning the old classic 6-gunners with the story in it. You were shot in the bicep, right?
Yep, I was sitting on the ground in a hot day, and everybody asked me, did you hear the shot and did you feel it? No, I did not hear it. When what I felt was a stinging in my arm that I thought was a bee sting. Well, I looked at my arm, and the blood was pumping out, and it obviously wasn't a bee sting. So I took my sweatshirt jacket off and kept the shot arm in it, and I wrapped it and kept wrapping it until I slowed the blood down, and I knew I needed help, and I started hollering for help, and nobody said anything. I didn't see anybody, so I got a little foul-mouthed, and a guy peeked out from a tree and said, "Are you hollering at me?" Yep, I was hollering at him. So I made him take me back to my vehicle, about a half-mile walk. He wanted me to leave my gun and my backpack and everything on the ground. I made him carry it. The walk back was up a hill, and he was a smoker, and I thought he was going to die from me from his breathing. When I got to the hospital, they stripped me off. I had a 5-inch exit wound in my arm. He shot me with a 7mm Magnum, a 150-grain Winchester PowerPoint. He shot across my chest. He shot me at an angle.
Wow.
It missed my heart by about 2 inches and hit my upper arm, and had the 5-inch exit hole. I had about 2 hours of surgery to get all the to get most of the bullet fragments out. I'll still have them in there, some of them. And it took me about 3 or 4 weeks to recover halfway, and the farm I got shot on was posted, and the farmer took me back in a doe season, and he helped me, and he had me go out and shoot a doe, because I was debating in my mind that I really want to do this again.
Yeah, right.
So I shot a doe, and I kept on hunting after that.
I assume you're right-handed.
I'm ambidextrous.
Okay, well,
with my guns, with handguns, I'm ambidextrous. Rifles, I'm left-handed.
oh, okay.
But pistols, I can shoot either way.
Did you get shot in the bone? Did it hit your bone at all?
It missed the humerus, that bone in my upper arm, by 1/8 of an inch.
Wow.
Going to the hospital, I lost 40% of my blood.
Man.
It was a nightmare.
I hope you're writing some memoirs, Doc, because the life and times of Dr. Larry Rogers would be a great read.
Yeah, I want to write a book, but my problem is I'm technologically messed up with computers. I have pictures that are photos, that are slides, that are on my camera. I don't know how, and I don't know where to get all of those transferred to a book. Mm-hmm. I don't have any problems writing, that you can tell from the 6-gunner.
Right.
But the pictures thing is my problem.
Well, then maybe sometime we can talk about that offline, because I'm all about preserving that kind of thing, and I would be glad to talk about helping you.
Good.
Okay, so, man, I feel like I mean this in the best way possible, but you're like an onion. Every question I answer peels off another layer of something interesting. I feel like, with all the experience you've had of handgun hunting and the equipment over the years, that you've probably seen a lot of things come and go in the industry. Guns that are available or were available that aren't, etc. Can you talk about some of the things that you wish were still available that aren't?
Yeah, one main thing really. If you're going to be a handgun hunter, you got to learn how to shoot from different positions. Shooting off the ground is easy. I use a backpack stuffed with pillows. It works all the time. Shooting off a bench, piece of cake. Shooting when you're standing up is a different thing. Some people have tried to develop things. The original tripods that I can't remember the company that developed them now, they were thin and shaky. I used them. They were better than nothing. But when the bog pod came out, that helped, but they didn't have a decent rest at first. Then they put the PSR rest on it, precision shooting rest. That turned handgun hunting into real hunting. You can shoot unbelievable distance. My longest deer kill on a PSR is 565 yards. But bog pod ended up stopping making them. I can't understand why. They sold them all out, and they still don't make them. That's the worst thing we're without. I used to use bipods. They work sometimes, but you can't get above high grass with them. The bog pod with the PSR is the biggest thing that could help us. I've got 3 PSRs. I figured they'd go bad. One of them broke, but I got it fixed a little bit. But the PSR and the bog pod's the thing. As far as everything else, there's many things that come and go. There's always a replacement for them. I don't worry about that. I got my bog pod and my pistols. I can do anything I want.
Can you tell me the the PSR, funny enough, Bog Pod was started in the by people that are in the town where I'm from, where I'm sitting right now in Central Texas in Fredericksburg.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
and then they sold it, and that's, I think, when the PSR was discontinued. What did you mount the PSR to? Was it a bipod or a tripod or a monopod?
Oh, tripod.
Tripod.
Yeah,
Okay.
bipods. You know, bipods are too wiggly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and tripods sort of are too. But with the PSR, you can rest the butt of your gun on that plate on the PSR, and that gives you almost as much stability as shooting off a bench.
Do you take a two-handed hold on the PSR?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because I know it has
With my little guns, like my two. Yesterday, I used my 223. I take a one-handed hold there, but I put my hand on the scope so it doesn't jump any.
Gotcha. What is the P? I've never been able to see one except pictures because they were discontinued by the time I was aware of them. Are they like made of ABS or other kind of plastic?
Yeah, a hard type of plastic.
Right. So
and when mine broke, the connection, there's a flat piece, and then there's an up and down piece with a U shape on it,
mm-hmm.
where you put the fore end of your gun. That's where the weakness is, where those two connect together. That's what broke. And my friend in Georgia took a piece of metal and made a L out of it and screwed it to the up and down piece and the flat piece. And that's what I use, and it's stable as the devil, and I take it to Africa all the time.
That's interesting.
And I'm taking it to Idaho this year on my next rock chuck hunt. I've killed so many groundhogs in West Virginia, I have to go to Idaho now to hunt rock chucks.
How much does the PSR weigh, do you think?
Weigh?
Yeah.
Ounces.
Okay. That's
light, very light.
That's one of the things. Have you heard of Trifecta, the Trifecta handgun rest?
Uh-huh.
Well, Brian Thurber is a good HHI member, and that is a similar concept, and it is very stable and very well built, and it is great for using as a rest. It's not an ounces proposition though, you know. And so I'm always I'm like you. I'm curious about, because I do a lot of walking and stalking and spot and stalk and still hunt or whatever you want to call it, and
me too.
Something that is just barely adds any weight to my sticks or whatever is I'm like you. I'm on the lookout for something like that.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the bog pod and the PSR for me, I use the bog pod as a cane.
Right.
After I had my surgery, before I had my surgery, I had such bad arthritis in my knee, I had to have either a cane or a walking stick or something. I just used my bog pod all the time for the cane. And when I got ready to shoot, all I had to do was spread their legs and I was ready to go.
Yeah. Do you hunt with handgun scopes exclusively?
No. I had a cataract in one eye, and I got it fixed, and I can see open sights pretty good through that eye. So I hunt some with open sights. Most of my hunting now is long range. I've killed all the animals around here that you can get close to. I used to kill a lot of groundhogs and deer with 357 SIG, a 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP. But these deer have learned if the Hitman's around, you don't get close to him. So most of my hunting's long range now.
That's funny. There's an underground message system warning about the Hitman coming into town.
Yeah. I've got the groundhogs, though. I've developed a whistle. From what I can tell, groundhogs have two whistles. They've got a warning whistle, and they got a who are you whistle. And if I go to a field and do the who are you whistle, about 60% of the time, I can bring a groundhog out of his hole.
Wow. Is this just something, can you do it for me?
No, it's hard to do.
Oh, okay. I'd love to hear that sometime.
My mouth's dry right now.
I got you.
And I don't want to give away all my secrets.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But that's very interesting. Yeah. Another thing that's impressive is how detailed your records of all of your exploits are. Is this something, like, what is your system for keeping that kind of data? Well,
when I moved here in 1975 and started shooting groundhogs and deer with rifles and arrow, I thought, well, maybe I ought to make notes about it. So I take big 8 by 11 pieces of paper and I make columns. And in one column, I put all the guns that you use, and at the upper part of the paper, I put 0 to 25 yards, 25 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 300, and greater than 300. And I put marks on it. And I've done that since 1975. So I have an enormous amount of records that I can go back and look. Plus, I've got all the handgunners. Oddly enough, in my house fire, only 2 things survived my house fire: the handgunners and our family Bible.
Wow.
Weird. Totally weird.
The 6 gunner, the old newspapers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. They were survived. I don't know how, but they did. I had them in a box. The box is smoked,
Yeah.
but they're fine.
Wow. And it's funny because those are probably literally one of the most flammable things.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So again, I know your experience is vast. If you were a young man now and you got the itch to become a handgun hunter, what would your path be given all of the things that are true today?
Yeah, seeing everything that's advertised and knowing some other people that are into it, which is nobody here. I'm the only true handgun hunter in this part of the state. There's some in the other part, but nobody's as intense as me. I think I would probably lean first to XP 100s and then to revolvers. Semi-automatics, nobody uses them around here except the target practice with 9MMs. You don't see or hear of anybody hunting with them. And revolvers, everybody and his brother around here is buying 460 Smiths, and they shoot them, but they don't hunt with them. Nobody wants 500s, nobody wants 454s, but that's probably what I'd lean to. And I'd go probably with the XP 100s. They're by far more accurate than all the other guns. That's where I'd lean towards.
Good tip. Here's another question that I thought of. You said, in your early career, talking about becoming dedicated and experiencing some successes and some not so successes in the field and dedicating yourself to practice. What was your path of practice? Like, did you have a regimen that you followed, or what was the development of your skill that you did for yourself?
Yeah, when I bought my house, it was on 10 acres. So I immediately thought, I'm going to have a shooting range because I work so much, I don't have time to go running around. So my dad came and helped me, and he built me a shooting bench, and we put the target things up at 25, 50, and 100 yards. So anytime I had some free time, I'd go outside and shoot a little bit. And once I went totally to handguns in '78, I saw that I was shooting good on target, but I wasn't shooting too good at the deer and the groundhogs at all. So instead of shooting off the bench, I started shutting up pop cans and milk jugs and things like that, and shooting all them offhand. And that's what I got into it. Anytime I had problems shooting a gun, I just kept working on it more. I didn't give up on it, and that's a approach I used on everything that happened. If I couldn't find good ways to rest my gun, I kept working on it until I did find a good way. If I couldn't find a bullet that performed good on game, I kept experimenting with other bullets until I found one that did. So there's a lot of bullets I don't use anymore. I don't bother buying them because I know from my experience they don't work. And it's the same way with my guns and all. If you don't practice, and be persistent, you're not going to learn anything about your abilities or about the equipment that you use.
That's a wise thing to realize. I think, thinking about one of my biggest takeaways from today, what you've talked about is, and I try to incorporate this into my shooting ability or shooting practice rather, is the variation that you must practice with rather.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
Field positions, offhand, different kinds of targets, that kind of thing, just how essential that is.
Yeah. And another thing that helped, when I got my concealed primary permit shortly after I lived here, I got to be buddies with all the local police in town and the sheriff and all. And I learned they had to qualify each year, so I went and qualified with them each year for years. And the funny thing about that is they never beat me. Never, ever beat me. And some of them got real bent out of shape. And I would hear them talking on the side about, well, we'll carry a snub-nose 38, but they're no good for anything else. So every time I heard them talk about a gun that wasn't any good for anything, I practiced with it before the qualifications, and I shot 100% with the 38, right hand, left hand, 7 yards, 25 yards, 50 yards. I shot 100% with a full loads on 44 Magnum. It drove these guys crazy all the time, but they didn't know how much I practiced. But I did that for the fun of it. But that helped me with my shooting abilities too, because all that shooting, a little bit you got to shoot braced, but most of it was offhand.
Right.
That teaches you trigger control. Yeah.
I really like that, what you just said, because so much of, I feel like so much of handgun hunters shooting and talking about it is kind of busting some myths about it and
right.
being able to prove to people what can be done. And I was hunting with some other HHI members a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how we don't know of a situation where the limitation on handgun hunting is the gun, not the shooter.
Right.
And I just love hearing stories about how people, well, this can't be done. Well, watch. Yeah.
Most things can if you're persistent and patient enough to practice.
Yeah. Excellent advice. So kind of my last question, and then I want to give you a chance to share any other awesome stories that you have. When JD started HHI and you had people involved, JD, Larry Kelly, all those people that were coming up, Lee Juris, who else would have been in that, Skeeter, and of course, Elmer Keith was one of the godfathers. And we got into what a lot of people think about as the heyday of handgun hunting, where people were enthusiastic, new things were being discovered and developed all the time, the glory days kind of a thing. And in my opinion, that ended with the introduction of the X-frame. That was the last big, large industry thing that was intentionally put out for handgun hunters. There, obviously, I don't mean to talk negatively about any other companies that have been doing really good work with products, but I kind of feel like the cycle of handgun hunting is that it was, in the 60s when you had the introduction of the Contender and the XP, and that was the start of let's prove what handgun hunting can do, and a lot of it was proven. And then when that kind of decrescendoed, and it seems like a lot of people forgot all the work that people like you and, again, JD and all of them were doing. And now we're in a situation where we're back to maybe not square one, but probably square two about proving handgun hunting again. So that's a long way of saying, do you think there's a way for us to recapture, ride a wave into handgun hunting becoming more popular again? And if so, what do you think the key to that is?
Well, I don't know. Right now, to me, it looks like it's a generational thing. When I go to the gun range, all the guys that's in their 20s and late teens and maybe early 30s, they're shooting black rifles. That's all they want to fool with. Anytime they have a handgun, it's a 9mm, and they try to make it sound like a machine gun. The guys in their 30s and 40s and 50s, they're almost exclusively rifle hunters. And the only handgun guys I see out there is guys in my age bracket, 60s and 70s. And I think it's pretty much that way nationwide. If you look at the post on several of these websites, you don't see a lot of young guys professing or using handguns at all. These outdoor channels on TVs or the hunting and all. I watch them for the heck of it. There's nothing else to do, and some of them aren't very believable, but they're all rifles. They're all rifles. Cabela's does have this one guy in Texas that does handguns, but he doesn't experiment very much, and he uses only Smith handguns. So until we get some better coverage and exposure to the world of handguns, I don't think it's going to change. I think the guys in mid to later generations are the ones that's going to keep it going. But for me, it looks like the younger guys have absolutely no interest in it at all, and that's a shame because it's better, it's more of a challenge, and sooner or later these black guns are probably going to be limited some.
So that brings another question to my mind. Do you think that the younger generation isn't keen because they've heard about it and they're not interested, or they haven't heard about it?
They don't hear much about it, and they're not interested because it's cool from all this junk they watch on TV, all these war movies and everything. Guys using these full automatic rifles, they want to emulate them and get their black guns, and so they can act like they're going to be a tough guy. And nobody, these kids are not willing to take the time or the interest to even learn about it. I try to show some of these people out here at our local range of my handguns, and they just have no interest at all. The only exception is my best friend's son. I've taught him, and he shoots pretty darn good, and I took him to Africa 2 years ago, and he bugged me to death until I let him shoot some stuff with a handgun. I made him take a rifle, but he ended up stealing a couple of my handgun, and he shoots about as good as anybody else does around here. But this desire, these younger people just don't have it, and I don't know if more exposure is going to help or not.
Well, the important thing is that you have at least one.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it takes to kind of reignite a spark. And
Yeah.
there are, I'll tell you, just because I know, obviously, as the director of the membership in HHI, we have several younger members that are kind of in the young family stage, 20s, 20s to 40s. And some of them are extremely keen. And I think there will always be embers of this community, just waiting. And we do
Yes.
see a few, stirrings in the industry of a few companies that are taking notice. And one of the things that I've been impressed by that some certain industry folks have communicated to me is that handgun hunters, out of all the different types of hunting, we put our money where our mouth is. Like, we will buy things. We will buy things that we want because we're also, I don't know any handgun hunter that's also not a handgun collector.
But the magazines have to approach us. There's only one magazine, American Handgunner, that's really almost exclusively handguns. Everything else is almost exclusively rifles. They don't give us any coverage, any exposure, and that's a big problem.
You're right. And I hope that's one of the things that we can do with this podcast, with HHI, is start exposing this to other folks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So is there anything in your storied career of handgun hunting that we haven't gotten to that you have another good story about to share with us before we close out?
No, that's most of the good stories I want to share until I do my book. But I think we owe handgun hunting to 2 or 3 or 4 icons. Obviously Elmer Keith, but more importantly, I think, is J.D. Jones, who I consider my best friend, and Larry Kelly, who I've known for a good while, and his son Ken. Super good people. I've worshipped those people. They got me to be more fanatical about my handgun hunting. They have done everything. And you, Ryan, need a world of thanks for reinventing Handgun Hunters International. We need to keep stuff like this going to at least start getting people interested so we can hopefully expand our base more.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot to me. Doc, thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it. I know it's going to be valuable to our membership and everybody that listens to it. Your experience is so valuable, and your advice also to younger generations. I'm glad that we're preserving this knowledge. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron.
Man, they just don't make him like Doc anymore. That was amazing. I was so grateful to be able to have that conversation with him. And he is going strong. He's still hunting. He's still traveling. And he is just such a wealth of knowledge and resources. He's always supportive of other handgun hunters, offering to help them out. HHI members have been making the pilgrimage to Doc's house for a long time to hunt with him and to chat with him and just meet him. And I'm so grateful that he took the time to do this interview with me today. And I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Handgun Hunters International. HHI is the only organization dedicated solely to supporting and growing the sport of handgun hunting. Membership gets you access to our great, well-moderated forum where friendly handgun hunters of all experience levels share stories and information from folks that have actual experience in our sport. We also host giveaways to our members of guns, gear, and ammo every month, and each prize is worth several times what membership costs. In addition to this podcast, we publish a free digital magazine, The Six Gunner, which is written exclusively by HHI members. If you are a handgun hunter or support handgun hunting in any way, you need to be a member of HHI. Join today at handgunhuntersinternational.com. Again, if you have any questions on how to get started in handgun hunting, please reach out to me at ryan@handgunhuntersinternational.com. If you think we deserve it, please leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to follow Handgun Hunters International on social media at Handgun Hunters INT. God bless and good hunting.